titans of Japanese car manufacturing face off in this edition of Electrifying, because today we are pitting the Nissan ARIYA
against this, the Toyota BZ4X. So that means it's Toyota, a company that hasn't really done a full-on production pure electric car before, versus Nissan, a company that is one of the original electric pioneers. Okay, so which one makes the best all-electric SUV?
But before we do get into the nitty-gritty, remember to subscribe to the channel, switch the notifications on, because there is so many new cars coming out, so much news, and it is worth staying up to date. Information is always changing.
And yes, the internet does often remind me about the Toyota RAV4 EV, but that never really caught on, despite, in the second generation, having a battery and powertrain made by Tesla and Panasonic, no less. Apparently, Nikki, there are still some knocking around in California. Today, we have the BZ4X versus the ARIYA, so where should we start?
Let's start here with the ARIYA. Now, it's a bespoke all-electric SUV, a few different battery options, 2 or all-wheel drive, and of course it has 5 seats, and it's got a bit of this spaceshipy look about it. I like it. Worth noting though, it starts at just under £43,000 and rockets up to over £58,500. Works, what you got?
Well, I'll tell you now that the BZ4X is from Toyota, and Toyota might be slightly late to the all-electric party, and the BZ4X itself might be very late thanks to some dodgy wheel nuts. But it is here. Now, you can only get one battery size at the moment. You can also have 2 or 4-wheel drive, and the range starts at just under £44,000 and goes up to just over 52. It's also, like the ARIYA, a 5-seat pure electric SUV, although it does look very different.
They might look different, but I think they both look really good. The Toyota a bit more chiseled at the front. I feel like this is maybe carrying a little bit of extra weight around the chin at the front. But overall, I love the swooping style of it. I love how these LED lights move down into the front. Obviously, you don't need a grille anymore with electric cars, so this is all blanked off, and it looks really nice. Now, this has the extra £2,000 sport pack added to it, which means you get these nice 20-inch wheels. Also, I really like the dual colour. So we've got the blue mixed with the black, and I think together that works really well. It has a bit of an upswept rear. It's nice and tidy with a small spoiler. I think overall, this car looks really good.
Weirdly, I think both of these cars have a very Japanese vibe, and I really do like the way the ARIYA looks. Although the BZ4X is slightly more conservative, at least in its proportions. Like the ARIYA, it's got slim LED headlights at the front with a kind of moustache in the middle, which disguises all of the sensors for the advanced driver assistance systems. The one thing I have noticed though, you see this gap, which is kind of an eyebrow over the headlight. Well, if you stand back, when it's in a brighter colour, that just looks like a panel gap to me, and once I'd seen it, I couldn't stop seeing it. Also, the other thing people mention are these big black plastic wheel arches. Now, some people say it just looks like they forgot to paint them, but I actually think it makes the car look rugged and chunky. After that, you go down the side. This car's on the optional 20-inch wheels as well. It's got some really nice kind of almost geometric creases in the body. There's the kind of lozenge that then trims back down into the wheel arch, and then at the back, it's got a full-width light bar, slightly tucked-up tail. It is an interesting car to look at.
It is, and actually they're both 5-seaters. They've both got a decent boot space, so it's actually probably just down to personal preference. Do let us know in the comments below what you really think, but if you disagree with me, then you're probably wrong.
Well, I'm happy to be wrong mostly. Anyway, let's get inside and do some more investigating. In there. So here we are in the Toyota. This is a top spec Vision, so that means it gets lots and lots of equipment. And actually, I think it's all right. In the middle is the big obvious thing. That's a 12.3-inch touchscreen. Yeah. You have to be careful because on the base pure spec, it only gets an 8-inch screen. But generally, I quite like it. You look really unconvinced.
So my first impressions, overall, it's quite nice. It's a nice place to be. Generally, I think the styling, it's quite chunky. Yes. This is quite in your face. You look a little bit claustrophobic in this situation.
This is my driving position.
The whole sort of steering wheel that's going up into the heads-up display, it reminds me of being in a van. Like,
Really?
it looks very functional and, yeah, it doesn't look so styled.
It's a
just
slightly weird one.
Yeah.
I must admit, you know this sort of tunnel here with this plastic? The plastic needs to be a bit sexier because that's quite cheap. And also it's got a small wheel which you tend to sit slightly lower so you can see into the driver's display. But I think it's all right. I mean, you see this stuff here?
This is nice. I like the
That's all
attention to
recycled.
detail.
Yeah. And
Recycled
but
material,
look down there.
nice.
Look down there.
Oh, that's annoying.
It's got no glove box.
That's really frustrating. I mean, there's lots of storage spaces, but I don't like open storage because then you can see all of your mess.
But I like that.
No,
I like it. But where would
wanna-
you? But you put your handbag down there.
How big do you think my handbag is?
It's not that much bigger than that, is
It's
it?
bigger than that. Yeah. No, my handbag is not fitting in there.
What about that?
That's nice. Oh, okay. So I can put my phone away and it charges.
Yes.
Nice addition.
And it's out of the way. And then there's a
But
couple of
where
cup
am I going to
holders.
put? This is too small.
No, because you can take that out and then it's deeper.
Okay. But it looks a bit cheap inside. That looks like an afterthought.
I must admit, now poking around it, some of the plastics do feel a little bit less luxury than I hoped. It's an interesting car with lots of equipment.
But just generally, like, these buttons are bigger than they need to be, no? It just feels
Yeah,
a
but
bit
if
more
you're driving-
industrial.
If you're driving, you can find the button you want and press it. I mean, it's an easy car to operate.
Okay,
and
fair
also,
enough.
it does have plenty of equipment.
Okay.
It comes with an app, which is really
That's
very
good.
good.
Okay, nice.
It's got connected sat nav, which you'll find convenient places to charge it.
Android
and
Auto,
all that-
Apple
Android Auto.
CarPlay.
All of that stuff.
Yeah.
It gets cameras. It gets driver assistance systems. This actually has a lot of kit on it that you can't see.
Fair enough.
Which I quite like.
I'm not complaining. I'm just saying it's not perfect. And I'm just worried about where I'm going to put the emergency nappies and snacks.
Is
and
that
baby
what
wipes.
you use a glove box for?
Yes.
You're supposed to use it for gloves.
I don't have any gloves for driving.
The back seats are reasonable, though there is a little hump in the middle, and the boot is big at 452 litres with a wide and convenient hatch opening.
Do you know what though? I like it. It's not mind-blowing, but it is certainly workable.
Agreed. It's nice, it's practical, but I think I can do better. See?
Okay.
Now this
is quite nice.
It is quite nice. But it is the Ariya Evolve, so this is top spec we
Right.
are talking here.
This
So
has got all the kit.
you would expect this for what you're paying.
Yeah.
But just take it all in. Because immediately I feel like you've got more space because you don't have the transmission down here in the middle.
Yes. That's
So
really
that
obvious.
is proper space for a handbag, by the way.
Yes. And then if you put your handbag there and you turn around a left-hand corner, that handbag goes under your feet.
Fair point. So maybe not the greatest place while driving.
No.
But, good.
But immediately though, that whole bank of screens does look super
Not
slick.
one, but two 12.3
Yeah,
inch screens.
that does look really good.
Yeah. And just, I feel like the attention to detail here, it's just a bit more refined. You've got this kind of wood finish here. You've got your kind of suede look.
You
across
don't have to
here.
do the voice. It's kind of like, that's just...
The shopping
You've
channel
got the
voice.
suede here, the wood. I like the way it's got these
Can we just
little
appreciate the seats?
They are actually very comfortable.
And they really are really comfortable.
They're really good.
And they look really nice. Look at the stitching.
Okay, but that's because it's a top spec one. But all Ariyas get this little bar underneath, which is the buttons are kind of inset into the wood and they light up when you switch it on. I think that looks really
And
good.
it feels good. It's got that haptic feel about
They
it.
click, don't
Yeah.
they? Which is really nice.
And also, in terms of what else you get in the car, it has a Pro Pilot system. It has the 360-degree monitors,
Yeah.
so wherever you're driving, wherever you're parking, it makes it really, really easy. There's dual zone climate, so you can cool down and I can
doesn't
keep
work
myself
on the law of
warm.
thermodynamics, but there you go.
Overall, you get sort of posher grades on everything.
Yeah.
Heated seats, the ventilation system. You get nice synthetic leather seats.
I just think it feels a bit more. It does feel more spacious immediately, and it's a little bit more designery. This feels even in basic Ariyas look like this, don't they?
Yeah, exactly.
They all get the same stuff. A couple of little details though, and I mean this is really trick, but this centre console, okay, fine. You've got wireless charging, a couple of cup holders, not that impressive, and then you can do this, which is move the centre console around. Now it doesn't move the base,
But you don't need to move the
but
base.
you can have a bit more of a feeling of space.
Yeah.
And then if you press...
But it's about where your arm goes, which I love, because I obviously, my driving position is further forward than you, so I can move this and I can still get a little rest for
and
my
then you've got a
elbow there.
little
It's
drive
great.
selector that's convenient. And
comfortable.
then if you press this, you get a little secret storage tray.
Yeah.
So that's more space, and it's hidden. So if you want to leave stuff in the car, you can pop it in there. You can also put your drinks, or when you stopped, you can pop
That is where the emergency nappies and wet wipes are going.
Oh, well, you don't have to just use that because you've also got a very small glove box.
Lovely. Perfect. Okay, I'll put the emergency snacks in there, driver snacks.
I do.
And as you
no,
called
you
earlier,
can't push
a
it.
can of pop.
A can of pop? Well, that's a normal thing. Watch your fingers. I do like that. There's a bit of gadgetry. There's a bit more feeling of surprise and delight, isn't it? It's like, this feels a little bit nicer.
And you get little extra things. You have to pay for them, of course. But we've got a little bit of copper trim here.
Looks great.
And for an additional £197,
Yes.
you get your very own Ariya vacuum cleaner. Oh yeah, a little handheld vacuum, which actually you do need, because have you noticed is it under your feet at the moment, what you're treading on?
Very thick carpet.
It's like a proper pile. It's really comfy.
I don't know. I think this
Might attract
definitely
mice.
wins.
Not good for dogs.
And there's more room in the back than the BZ4X too, although it is a bit dark unless you get the big sunroof, and the boot is larger. That's a whole soft bag more spacious than the Toyota. Is that a win on the inside for Nissan then? I think it is.
But right here is where the BZ4X actually makes quite a lot of sense, because once you're driving it, once you're behind the wheel, it's actually very respectable. Okay, so it's not fast, with just over 200 brake horsepower and a 0 to 62 time of about 7.5 seconds. It's not going to snap your neck, and with front wheel drive only in this particular version, it's not exactly sporty, but when it comes to being a calm and kind of manageable and sorted companion, it's actually very nice. It's not exciting. Okay, so the steering is a little bit fake and a bit gluey, but the body control is actually quite good. You can feel the weight, and the brakes are fine, although I would say the brake regeneration, which you access through this button here, isn't as strong as I'd like it. It doesn't make it into a particularly aggressive one-pedal car. I would prefer that to be a bit stronger. It's a little bit lackluster, but there is hustle there if you can be bothered. It's wet today, so inevitably when you pull out of a junction, particularly sprightly, it does scramble its wheels a bit, but there's also there if you can be bothered to find it. It's not a car that makes you want to drive it particularly hard, but when you're just cruising around, it's quite nice. Like I said, it's been raining really heavily today, so you can hear a little bit of noise from the wheel arches, you can hear spray in the wheel arches. It feels like it's possibly not quite as quiet as it could be, but I'd have to drive all its competitors on the same bit of road on the same day to really give you an idea of that. I've quite enjoyed knocking around in it. It's a solid car. I keep thinking it's a solid rather than particularly exciting companion. But if you do happen to need an SUV that can actually cope with a little bit of off-road, like a wet paddock or something, then the BZ4X can actually be optioned with four-wheel drive. Now this is a front-wheel drive version, but there's a four-wheel drive version which gets two slightly less powerful motors, one for either end. So it doesn't get a whole heap more horsepower than the front wheel drive version, and it's no faster, but it does give you four wheel drive traction. Now when you combine that with Toyota's X modes, which are traction control systems and ESP systems for off-road, it gives you options like sand, mud, snow, that kind of stuff. This thing is actually really, really good off-road. It would do more than 90% of owners would ever need, and I can vouch for that. I mean, it basically becomes an SUV that can actually SUV. Who'd have thought it?
Well, I can match that, sort of. The Ariya also comes with an all-wheel drive option called E-Force, which sounds like some sort of Nissan superhero group. I like it. But it is basically another motor to give all-wheel drive. Though I think the system in here is actually more about security and traction on the road than off. This, however, is the front wheel drive version. It's got a bit more power than the Toyota at 239 brake horsepower, but it gets to 62 miles per hour from rest in pretty much the same amount of time, 7.6 seconds. And you know, I have to say, it does feel a little less reactive, a little less quick off the mark than the Toyota. I mean, it's not much of an issue, to be honest, because it's so similarly matched, but that's not really an issue, is it? This isn't a sporty car. That's not the reason that you're going to buy a Nissan ARIYA. As a cruiser, however, it's great. It's super comfortable. It's a really smooth drive. It's a little bit firm at times, I'd say, but really nothing to worry about. If I was being picky, I'd say I'd probably like something with a bit more direct steering, and you have to press really quite firmly on the brakes, so I'd probably prefer slightly stronger brakes, and it does feel just a little bit heavy at times, but overall it really is quite an enjoyable, relaxing drive. And I also really like the brake regen, worth noting. That is a development of Nissan's e-pedal, and in this it's called the e-pedal step. It's supposed to be a little bit more intuitive to use, and I'd say it is. Again, just like the Toyota, this is a really solid effort, and I think anyone that buys one would be very happy with it.
There are two battery sizes to choose from with the Ariya, a 63 kilowatt hour with just over 200 miles of range, or an 87 kilowatt hour like this one with 329 miles. Now remember, these are all WLTP figures, so you're probably looking at least 25% less in the real world. There are heat pumps in both of these cars though, which makes them more efficient in the colder weather, which is a bonus, as it's an option on rivals such as the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and Kia EV6. DC charging is handled by a 130 kilowatt system, which is only okay. And there's 22 kilowatt DC charging on offer on the posher versions, which is an extra £895 option on the lower specs. Otherwise, it's 7.4 kilowatts as standard for you. That's going to give you about 35 minutes for a 10 to 80% top up on a big public charger. And a typical home wall box will see flats to full in about 14 hours. Though that is a big battery, don't forget, so it's a bit average from the Ariya. If you're going to be charging often while out and about, the 200 plus kilowatt capability of the Kia, Hyundai or Tesla is going to seem pretty attractive.
In comparison, there's only one battery to choose in the BZ4X for the moment, and that's a 71.4 kilowatt-hour unit with a possible 317 miles of WLTP range. Although, like the Ariya, that's very unlikely unless you happen to live in a laboratory. What's interesting here is that the BZ4X looks like it produces better efficiency than the Nissan, which is excellent. It'll also save you time on big public chargers. With 150 kilowatt DC charging, a 10 to 80% fill will be done in 32 minutes, for a very similar real-world range. Early cars had a 6.6 kilowatt AC charging system, but later ones will get 11, and a home wall box overnight charge will take 12 hours and 45 minutes. So in terms of efficiency in charging, well, gotta say the Toyota's got this nailed.
Right, time for some financial chat. A top-spec front-wheel drive Vision BZ4X weighs in at £49,500, which is strong money, but you do get quite a lot of equipment for that. The thing with this car is that if you want a warranty, you can get it for up to a decade, 10 years, as long as you have it serviced at a Toyota main dealer. Ooh. So that's all you need to do, is have it serviced at a Toyota main dealer, and then you get a decade's worth.
Also, 10 years.
Also though, the interesting thing about this car is it's kind of a one-stop shop for ownership prospects. So you can insure it, service it, sort it all out, and it's all in one place. As an ownership prospect, it's got to be the Toyota. I'm sorry, it's a done deal.
Wow. Okay, all right. Well, hang on a minute. I haven't told you what I get with the Ariya. Although that is kind of unbeatable. You're right. I mean, a 10-year warranty is kind of unheard of. The Ariya gets a standard 3 years.
Oh, that's rubbish.
But it does also get 8 years on the battery. So that's not
standard.
Too bad. Yeah, okay. You can obviously buy, once that expires, you can buy extended warranties. And there are different aftercare packages as well. But yeah, you're right on this one. That is pretty unbeatable.
And come on, Nicki.
Well, the Ariya isn't cheap. Like for like, this top-spec front-wheel drive car with the bigger battery and 329 miles of range weighs in at £55,890 without any options. So that's £6,000 more than the BZ4X. Though the Ariya range is broader, so you do have more options.
Okay, so we've got to come up with a bit of a conclusion.
We do.
I'm going to start.
Okay.
Toyota BZ4X, it's taken a while to get here, but I think it's actually a really good car. As a front-wheel drive car, I think it's competent and it's nice. As a four-wheel drive car, if you spec it that way, with all-wheel drive, I think it's actually brilliant. I do sometimes go off-road. I do need to go across the odd wet field or a muddy track, and I've driven it off-road and it's actually brilliant. My problem with this car in particular is basically I've had to go in your Ariya and
It's really nice.
It's quite nice.
It is. So I won't be going off-road at all. And actually, I do love this. It is a brilliant all-rounder family car. It feels secure, drives really nicely. It's a decent size. But the elephant in the room, this is actually £6,000 more than yours, which is a decent chunk of cash. However, I think what you get is worth more than that. But ultimately, I guess it depends on what your priority is in the car. I love stepping in and be able to feel that the styling is there. It just feels more expensive. And yes, that would be it.
Well, the interesting thing about the Ariyas is that they all get the big screens. They all get the kind of nice interiors.
Yeah.
So I think as a range, possibly, it depends on which model you get, but for us, the Nissan ARIYA squeaks it and it wins this test.
Yes, Shields wins again. Anyway, thank you so much for watching our review. Do let us know in the comments below. Have I got it completely wrong? Am I silly to spend an extra £6,000 on the Ariya? Let us know what you think. And in the meantime, remember to subscribe to our channel, put those notifications on, because there is so much news coming out and you need to be up to date with it.
As ever, if you want to know more about either of the cars featured today or anything at all about electric cars, then please do pop along to electrifying.com, where we can answer all of your questions. And you can take a look at the different models available as well.